My chapter summaries for a Teacher's Pocket Guide to School Law. My name is Jared Larson. In chapter 1 was about the control of public schools. I was very unfamiliar with the fact that local school board members are considered to be state officials. I just never really occurred to me that they would be state officials because they're on the local level. But since public education is state function, they were considered state officials. And it was also interesting to think the fact that public education is a federal interest, a state function, and a local responsibility. That just was an interesting statement to me. And I think as a leader, it's important to work consistently to influence federal, state, and local laws and policies in support of every student learning. Chapter 2, the instruction and curriculum standards. This chapter was interesting to me, just the amount of litigation dealing with grading. I just didn't think that people would litigate grading to such an extent, but also made me think about how wrong it is to use a grade as a punishment for misconduct. That I never really thought about that since I teach elementary school, but interesting to think about. As a leader, this chapter I think will help me make sound use of assessments, performance management, and accountability strategies to achieve mission, vision, and goals. And that was in ISLIC Standard 2, Teaching and Learning. Chapter 3, Religion in Public Schools. Helped me realize that teachers in a school are acting as agents of the state, so we can't promote our religion. We can certainly free to say what we believe, but it's a very thin line between that and promoting your religion to students. So you have to be very cognizant of that while you're in the school building and acting as a school agent. As an education leader, this chapter helped me to know that I need to establish an environment where students feel safe and nothing interferes with student learning. And that's in ISLIC Standard 3, managing operational systems and safety. Chapter 4, Students, the Law in Public Schools. Biggest thing I learned in this chapter was you have to be justifiable. There has to be a justifiable threat to safety of students when you're conducting searches. And again, in elementary school, you don't deal with searches very much, but I always just kind of thought the school could do what they want. But then the students have that right to privacy, and the search should be the last resort. And I hope as an education leader, I'll try to involve parents, students, and teachers in developing, implementing, and monitoring guidelines and norms for acceptable behavior. And that was ISLIC Standard 3 as well. Chapter 5, Due Process and Student Safety. Just helped me realize the importance of fairness. Every student should be treated fair, get a fair hearing, and fair impartial judgment. I always kind of knew that, but it's always good to revisit those things. As an education leader, my goal would be to model personal and professional ethics, integrity, justice, and fairness. And that's ISLIC Standard 5, Ethics and Integrity. Chapter 6 was about liability and student records. This chapter taught me a lot about the power of words. I've heard many instances of teachers talking about students that, according to the definition of the book, could be considered as slander. So I know I'm going to be more careful when talking with my peers after reading this chapter. As an education leader, I'll strive to protect the rights and confidentiality of students and staff, and that's ISLIC Standard 5, Ethics and Integrity. Chapter 7 was about individuals with disabilities. I don't have much experience in special ed field. Obviously, I teach special education students, but I don't have a lot of learning in the law. So the least restrictive environment is something I wasn't that familiar with, but I'm a strong believer in that. As I read what it means, that is what I believe. So I was very happy that my beliefs lined up with how strongly that fit into the IDEA law. As an education leader, I hope to provide and monitor effects of differentiated teaching strategies and materials to address diverse student populations. That's ISLIC Standard 2, Teaching and Learning. Chapter 8 was about the teacher and school liability. Foreseeability in this chapter was new to me, that you have to really be able to foresee what could happen and really be forward thinking and not reactionary. So that was a good lesson to learn for me as hopefully a future um, building leader, that I need to be on top of things and be able to look ahead at what could cause problems. As an education leader, I'll try to maintain the physical plant for safety to support learning for every student. That's ISLIC Standard 3, managing operational systems and safety. Chapter 9 was about discrimination in employment. I kind of knew a lot of the issues brought forth here, but age discrimination was somewhat new, and the whole chapter showed me the importance of documentation and being fair to all prospective or current employees. Um, and also the prospective employee part was a little bit new, just to know how much you really have to document even when you're interviewing, so you can prove why one candidate was better than the other. As an education leader, I'll demonstrate respect for the inherent dignity and worth of each individual. That's ISLIC Standard 5, managing ethics and integrity. Chapter 10 was about teacher freedoms. I was fairly familiar with freedoms teachers enjoy as citizens of the United States, but I wasn't really aware that didn't totally apply during the school day, because you're kind of restricted. You can't interfere with educational interest of the school or district. It totally makes sense to me, but I just hadn't thought of it in that way. As a teacher leader, I hope to use my professional influence to enhance education and the common good. That's ISLIC Standard 5, ethics and integrity. And Chapter 11 was about tenure, dismissal, and collective negotiations. Being part of a negotiations team in a previous district, I knew a fair amount about what was talked about in this chapter, although I did not. One thing that was new was that a teacher can request an evaluation from another supervisor. I wasn't aware of that. I knew that they could rebut their evaluation, but I didn't know they could request from another supervisor, so that was new to me. As an education leader, I hope to help others sustain personal motivation and commitment by helping them to balance personal and professional responsibilities. And that was ISLIC Standard 5, ethics and integrity. On the whole, I really enjoyed what I learned from this book. I'll definitely keep it around right close to my desk, so it will be on hand at all times. Thank you.